Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 61. In this video I'll be looking at the basics of using your airbrush to do detail work, something that I struggled with myself for a long time. Guys, after the Abrams build, I got quite a few messages asking about airbrush work and specifically doing detail work with your airbrush. Now, when I started off in the hobby, there was no one around to help me. I had to figure this stuff out all by myself. So the technique I'm showing you here is definitely not the method, it's merely my method, and maybe this will help you along. This video is aimed at novice modelers and people perhaps starting off in the hobby or coming back to it. So if you are an advanced modeler, advanced airbrush user, then this video is not exactly aimed at you. I use two airbrushes for precision work. I use this Iwata Eclipse. This is really a workhorse airbrush, double action of course. And like most Iwata users, I also remove the end cap. Why do we do this? Honestly, I do not know. It probably helps us to clean the airbrush. The other airbrush I'm using is this airbrush from Supernova Studio, the Ninja. This is an excellent entry-level airbrush. Also great for area coverage such as spraying primers, and I can highly recommend this if you are new to the hobby and you're looking at getting your first airbrush. But in this video I'll be working with the Iwata as we'll be doing detail work. And just to make it easy for me to switch between these two airbrushes, I use a quick release adapter from my compressor, and that will fit both airbrushes. My preference is for Vallejo paint, as most of you know. The Model Air range for Vallejo is aimed at airbrush work, and this is already thin enough for airbrushing. The model color paints are aimed at brush painting. This you will need to thin first. This is not ready to go straight into your airbrush. And the thinner that I would recommend for this is, of course, Vallejo's own airbrush thinner, acrylic airbrush thinner. The secret sauce also is this Airbrush Flow Improver, and I can highly recommend this product. This will keep the paint from drying on your airbrush needle. You only need 1 or 2 drops of this. Now, just to show the difference between these paints, this is the Model Air paint, black, solid black from Vallejo. And as you can see, this is a very thin paint. This is ready to go straight into your airbrush. You might want to add some flow improver, but this really is good to go. Now the model color paint, the paint's usually aimed at brush painting. You'll see this is a much thicker paint, and this will obviously have to be thin. So just keep that in mind when you use these paints. Now just to show you the action on the airbrush, it's dual action, meaning that if I press the trigger down, it releases air. Also, when I pull the trigger backwards, it will release paint. The further back I pull the trigger, the more paint is released. And once you get your head around this, it becomes really easy to use this airbrush. Now just to demonstrate, I'm going to use this black paint from the Model Air range from Vallejo. And this goes straight into the airbrush, being the Model Air paint. This has been formulated for airbrushing. A few drops of that. Always remember to close the bottle. And the next step is to use some Airbrush Flow Improver. Now we only need 1 or 2 drops of this. And I simply add this to the cup. This is my way of doing it. 2 drops of that, and just mix this. And we're good to go. Now to spray a broad pattern, I keep the airbrush a distance away from the surface, and you can see there that's a broad pattern. If however I bring the airbrush closer, you'll see that the line becomes much thinner. And once you get your head around this, you can easily control the amount of paint that you lay down on your model. And again, this takes some practicing. So take your time with this, take a piece of paper and some paint and practice this. For fine work, I always remove the front cap so I can see where the needle is pointed. And really just some practice, you can see there it's possible to draw a pencil line. If I keep it further away from the surface, I get a broad pattern. If I bring it in close, I get a pencil line. And there you go, quite easily done. Just to repeat the trigger action, if you pull the trigger back, it will release paint, and if you push the trigger in, it will release air. And if you learn this, you will be able to control your airbrush fully. Another tip I can give you is to first use a piece of cardboard or paper and spray the first paint onto this before you go into the model. The first paint that comes out of the airbrush is usually a bit of spatter, and you don't want that on your model. So I always keep a bit of cardboard ready just to avoid getting that spatter onto the model. Now, during long airbrushing sessions, such as when you're applying camouflage to a model, it's unavoidable that at some point the paint will start drying on the needle of your airbrush, and then you'll get some spattering as well. If that happens, what do? You can see the paint is dried on the needle, quite visible there. I used white paint in this case. The solution is very simple. Take a cotton bud, dip it in some water or airbrush cleaner, and simply then remove that dried paint from the airbrush needle. Very easy to do. Once this is done, you're back to business and you can start airbrushing again. Guys, so that's the very basic steps of using a double action airbrush. I hope this is helpful to any new people watching this. Airbrushing is an essential skill in scale modeling, and if you can master this instrument, you will certainly be able to do some really wonderful things on your models. Guys, so that's it for this short little video, just some basic skills. I plan to do a few more of these as the topics come up. In the meantime, please follow me on Instagram. I'll be posting regular updates there, and you won't miss a single thing. Thank you for watching.